Good morning to those of you that have just joined. I'm John Stovall, the marketing manager here at ITESOFT, and I'm joined by Craig Lindley, our pre-sales manager. We're going to be talking to you about Capture. The focus of this short session, though, is to actually look at our Capture solution, Capture as a service. And we really hope that some of you on here today will be able to get involved and send us over some invoices via email that we can run through the system live for you this morning. So there you are, guys. On your screens in a moment is the email address to use. It's invoices@streamlineforinvoices10.demo.itsoft.cloud. As I say, if anybody is going to be sending invoices into us, and we really hope that most of you do this today, please pop it into the questions box that you want to do that, and we can make sure that we pop the email address in there for you as well, so that you can get those across to us. This is your first call on this one. I will remind you a couple more times before we get to the demo. So as I've said, the focus of this morning is around Capture and the importance of Capture within the accounts payable process. Now, when we're talking about accounts payable automation, the traditional thought process is around capturing pieces of paper, scanning them through, and then being able to do something with that scanned image. Now that's great, but what we have been seeing over the last few years, and it's a trend that's continuing, is the rise of email and PDF invoices coming into businesses. As more organizations move to paperless processes, the emails and PDFs coming in are becoming more and more important. And in fact, I think since this Insight report in 2018, I think that the percentage has actually flipped, and it is now more heavily in favor of email and PDF. What this means is that solutions that can't capture from email, that can't pull from email, that can't automatically read PDF documents that are received by your business, all that's doing is adding more manual steps into the process and reducing your overall automation rates. It starts from the beginning. It starts from Capture. When you're thinking about maximum automation, you have to consider each of the stages in the process. And in fact, supporting this, what we're also seeing is the rise of things like network invoices with EDI feeds, B2B networks. Whilst they are definitely increasing, they are not a huge proportion of the total number. But you are also seeing things like supplier portals, where you're offering your suppliers a chance to upload invoices themselves, or potentially even manually input some data into some pre-designated fields. But this all is part of that stream of incoming data into your accounts payable department. And what's important is that for your automation to work, for your further down line, you need to be able to capture these and process 100% of these documents or input points as they happen. And that's why for us at ITESOFT, we feel that Capture genuinely is the most important element of it, that you need to be able to capture all of that data as quickly as possible. Now, again, on your screens, because I wanted to make sure that this is here as often as possible, the email address to send us your invoices to. So everybody here, please do fire us over some invoices if you've got them ready. And if you need that email address to be sent over to you directly, just pop a note in the questions box and we will do so. So beyond just capturing all of the invoices, all of those data streams that are coming in, the real standout element of Capture as a service, as an application for accounts payable, and the reason for its existence in many ways is around mastering the supplier data. Why we highlight this is that traditional automation solutions, they often had a real genuine flaw, and you know, our solution was the same in many ways, in that relying on the supplier master data that's held within an ERP is a risk. there's a risk that if that isn't managed effectively, if it isn't looked after, cleaned, controlled, actually what happens is that the automation rates drop away over time. You're still able to capture a large amount of the data off of the invoice, but you're not able to match it. And the supplier master data was often where we found this problem. With Capture as a Service Streamline for Invoices, we've actually removed that as a risk. And what we have done is we have compiled a centralized repository of supplier master data, a central data set that we manage using artificial intelligence and using some fuzzy logic algorithms. And what that allows us to do is that when an invoice is first received and you capture that invoice, it's thrown up to the cloud. We do a first match on that, validating that that supplier is correct, is right, that there hasn't been any changes or amendments to the information on the document that you've received, that there hasn't been anything odd that's happened in the back office in terms of the payment details or anything of that nature. We're validating that information from a central location. We're then passing that back to you saying, yes, okay, we've captured all of the data. We've now validated that this supplier is real, is relevant, is right, and we feel this is now okay for you guys to proceed with. Now, whether that's going out for an approval process or whatever that case may be. What this allows us to do is ensure you that your capture rates will be at extremely high levels almost instantly, but certainly within weeks of the go live, and we will guarantee 85% capture rates. And by that, we will contractually guarantee that for new customers coming on board using Capture as a Service and Streamline for Invoices. So as I've said, supplier master data being a problem for most organizations traditionally, it's time consuming, it takes energy and effort to be able to manage it. If we remove that from that process, it purely benefits you as a user of the application. Now, I think this is virtually the last call for you to send us some of your invoices. The email address is again on your screen. It's invoices@streamline4invoices10.demo.itesoft.cloud. So if you haven't yet done so, please send some invoices across to that email address. We really want you to be involved in this. We really want you to see what the application is able to do in real time live here this morning. So Craig, we are going to be coming over to you, and if I can get this to work correctly, you should now be the presenter.
Yeah, can you just confirm you can see my screen?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Beautiful. Okay, just confirm for me you can see my desktop, and then, oh, sorry.
Yes, I can, although, Craig, you might just want to pop the volume up just a little bit.
Let me just see what I can do. Bear with me momentarily. Just trying to amplify my volume. Properties, levels. That's the highest I can go, John. How's that?
Yep, I think that would be good.
Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to point at the Streamline platform and have a look at the invoices you've sent in. Just before we do that, it's worth mentioning the various kind of capture mechanisms that we supply with the product. So we kind of break capture down into two discrete areas. So one is kind of an automatic capture and one is a manual capture. Automatic capture channels are things that are defined like EDI, email, fax servers, if you still have fax servers inside your business. Channels where we can pull in portals as well. So for European countries like Italy, for example, we can punch out to the government cloud, get the documents. They're all channels that we can automatically capture invoices on your behalf. So the mailbox you've been provided today, that is an automated mailbox that we pick up some invoices from. There's also a manual capture side as well. So you will probably still get some paper invoices. and those need someone to do some effort, which is put them into a scanner or an MFD and do something. So they're kind of manual capture channels that we refer to. We're not actually looking at capture today. We're looking at the kind of data reading. Just to give you a bit of background about the data reading itself, there are two main aspects. The first is the supplier identification, which John mentioned that we have developed some technology around that to basically benefit all our suppliers, which is that we have what we refer to as a mutualized supplier database, where we keep a record of all the suppliers that we've known about through all of our customers. And this allows us to kind of have additional information that you may not have in your master data that we may find on their invoices. So phone numbers, email addresses, what you have on record is probably different to what's on their invoice. We make sure that we're up to date with their current addresses, bank details, things like that. So it allows us to match the supplier much easier. The second step is what happens when that invoice for that supplier is read. So out of the box, the software will read any invoice from any supplier using a number of AI techniques, so natural language processing, things like that, to actually interpret the document as a human would, as opposed to, you know, historic template-based driven reading of invoices, which, as John mentioned, if you get up to somewhere like 60%, you're doing well, but over time that will go down quite significantly unless you invest a lot of time and effort. Whereas with the AI technologies that we use, it's ready to go from day one. There's no setup, no configuration. And this is the part that we're going to concentrate on today. So the platform that you've emailed your invoices into is a standalone bare bones platform, not hooked up to any supplier recognition bar 2 or 3, which we use for demo scenarios. So this gives you effectively a feel for what the software will look like with invoices from yourselves that we've never ever seen before. So we can almost guarantee that this platform will not have any kind of smoke and mirrors potentially around it. It is a bare bones system. So what we're going to do, we're going to log on to Streamline and we're going to see what the status is. We're going to log on as an accounts payable user called Sarah from a fictional company called Acme. In a production environment, we will typically have single sign-on enabled, so it's literally just a case of opening the bookmark and Sarah's taken in automatically. However, because we sign in now to different users, we're just going to log on the old-fashioned way. Okay, so Sarah's initial dashboard here shows that there are 6 tasks for her to perform. There's 9 invoices gone through the platform in total, and 1 has been rejected. If we click on the 9, we'll just see what's happening with all of these documents. So we can see a couple of these invoices have exported. So these are a couple of invoices I put onto the platform today, just to demonstrate in case no one sent anything in as to what the software is reading. What we'll do, however, we'll come back and look at these if we don't get many more invoices, but we do have 4 invoices here which have been emailed in from members of this webinar. So I'll just open this first document and we can have a look, see how the recognition has gone. So as we expected, we haven't identified the supplier because we've unhooked it from the supplier database to show you what a fresh read will look like. So this particular invoice, we've got this type invoice, that's good, as opposed to a credit note. Invoice without PO, that appears correct. I can't see any kind of purchase order number on that document. So this is Toyota Financial Services, who I believe are on the call with us today. Invoice number 123456. So we've correctly grabbed invoice number 123456. So that's a good start. Invoice date, so 9th of September 2019. We've grabbed the date correctly. GL date that's typically configured by us. So that can either, most people do not use this. Likewise, the due date. We can read due dates off of an invoice if it's printed. However, most of the time that will be calculated by your finance system when the invoice hits. So you will have payment terms associated with that vendor. So we have a net amount of 4,133.64 down here, which is correct. And we also have a gross amount of 4,133.64 as well, and there's no VAT on this. So that invoice has read absolutely perfectly. I've even got the currency correct. Okay, so let's look. In fact, let me switch to this view, the tasks to do view. So we grab the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What I'll do just to get out of the way is we've read the invoice, and I'm going to reject it and say validated, just to see that we've seen that invoice. In reality, we could potentially do it for the next one. We can find a supplier and push it through the system, but we've got 3 more documents to look at. So let's look at this 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so as expected, we don't have the supplier because vendor company name is not known to us. Invoice number 1, 2, 3, 4. It's worth pointing out as well that if you notice there's a hash symbol, or as the US call it, a pound symbol on the front there. We can also pick that up if required, but the default configuration is to strip special characters. That can be configured for yourselves, but typically we would strip those off. And that's why I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. The invoice date, 30th of the 8th, 2019. That's absolutely fine. Invoice again. One thing that the software appears to have got wrong here is, I'm guessing where it says PO M7, that is supposed to be a purchase order number. There's a couple of things that would need to be optimized by us for this. First of all, there is nothing kind of to indicate that that is a purchase order number. There's no kind of descriptive text there. So even a human would at best guess potentially think that might be a purchase order number. Something to give the software more to go on as well is the fact that at the minute we do not know what your purchase orders look like. So if they're 10 characters or if they're a letter and 4 characters, if we know that information, we can find that information much easier. So we know nothing about your platform, and just POM7 2000 isn't a great indication. Amount 2,500, 3,000, £500 VAT, GBP again. So we've done pretty well on everything else. And like I said, if we had more information about Toyota Financial Services purchase orders, and in fact one of the pieces of data that we do require from new customers is a list of open orders, so we can make sure that the order number we've read is correct for the supplier that we've identified, things like that. But again, that's a pretty good read. So we'll just put that out of the way. Okay, so 2 more to read, and again, you can still fire these in if you're still looking. We take a look at these in real time. So if you have the email address in front of you, please feel free to email any invoices you want us to take a stab at, no matter how bad they may look. And we will purge the system afterwards as well, so you can be sure that we'll clear down your information. So type of document, invoice, again, nice and clear from this keyword over there. Invoice without PO, so yep, there's no PO on this one again. Invoice number 111, invoice date 18th of the 9th, £200, £40 VAT and 40% tax. So again, outside of the supplier itself, which we're not going to get vendor company name from Epsom Surrey, we've read 100% of the fields on that document as well. So that's we're off to a good start. So let's purge that off the system. Okay, this one also looks like a supplier-based invoice, so we can have a look at this. L&N Consulting. So as we mentioned, we're not trying to identify the supplier on this one. Invoice without PO, document number. That is interesting, actually, that we haven't identified this as an invoice number. The reason again for this is because the software is attempting to interpret it automatically. You can effectively think behind the scenes, we know roughly what invoice numbers look like. So there may be a few letters and numbers, things like that. There may be 10 digits, 5 digits, 4 digits. L and N-044 doesn't look like an invoice number that we typically find. So behind the scenes, we assign confidences to any field we may think looks like an invoice number. And obviously, the more invoices we see from a supplier, that confidence can, increase for certain formats. However, we've never seen this before. We're not convinced that that is an invoice number versus something else on the invoice here. In fact, we've grabbed, as far as I can tell, the account number down here. So in reality, what would happen here, we would change this value because it is incorrect. And this would flag up to our operations department that what we OCR'd on that document is not what eventually exported. So a user had changed a core field. And that would kick off a ticket to say, have a look, why have we read this value? We've got the net amount, we've got the gross amount, we've got the VAT amount, and currency as well, we have GBP. It's worth noting that on these invoices, we'll read currency symbols. So, dollar symbols, pound symbols, euro symbols, as well as reading the kind of ISO codes as well. So GBP, USD, things like that. If you deal with many international suppliers, if you deal with lots of international suppliers, it may be that the dollar symbol alone is not enough to find the currency. So it could be a US dollar, an Australian dollar, a Canadian dollar. We'll also look at the country of origin of the supplier as well. So lots of clever technology in there as well. And as you would imagine, that we will also handle various country-specific date formats. So there is only really one, and that's US dates. So if a vendor is a US supplier, so it could be that you get some web hosting or something, or some Google Ad services, we will identify that the vendor is based in the US, and we will read the date accordingly. We'll still present it to you in the local date format, which may be UK for viewers today, but we will read it in the American format. So let me just, we've got a date up here of the 30th of August 2019. So you will notice that we read pretty much any date format you can throw at us, whether it's words, text, numbers, things like that. Let me just, we did a pretty good read on that as well. And I'll just check if anyone else has put any more invoices in there. They have not. So we've only had 4, as far as I can tell. John, I'll just process these last 2 invoices that we put through. In fact, sorry, this last one. This is a duplicate which I'm going to reject. And then we can take some questions. Okay, so this is an invoice for Accounts Payable Limited. Invoice number INV1633. Perfect. Invoice date 4th of June. So as you can see, it's written June, not June, but we've still correctly interpreted that. We can see the net amount of 12,492, VAT of 2,000, currency GBP. So again, we've read that invoice absolutely perfect. We've identified that it hasn't got a purchase order, in which case we need to, let's reject this off of the system. So validated. And then finally, we'll just reject this duplicate here. John, do you just want to check if there are any questions while we're doing this?
Yeah, Craig, thank you. Ladies and gents, you're very quiet there this morning. No questions at all in there, which either means we've done a wonderful job and we've answered all of your questions, and you're going to go back into the business and figure out how you can get your hands on our software, or we've done a terrible job and we've sent you all to sleep. I mean, has anybody got any questions for either of us? We've still got 5 minutes here, and we would love to answer any that you may have. There's a questions box in the panel, and we are more than happy to try and answer any questions you may have around the system. It may be that you want to have a look at something in particular. You see, this is where it would be really nice if the questions box on this system worked a little bit more like sort of some of the more modern messenger apps, where you can see when somebody's typing, because I'd know whether somebody was in mid-flow typing some great long question out or not.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for any questions, do we have a question?
No, Craig, hold on. They've people were busy typing questions. Fantastic. So we have got Nicholas Hall. Is there a PO module? I'm guessing you are referencing within Streamline for Invoices for raising purchase orders internally. Craig, would you like to,
okay.
to give us?
Yep, I'm gonna have a crack at both sides of that. So the CaaS product we've just looked at, that is pure invoice reading. So we will read purchase order numbers on there quite happily. So, you know, and if they quote multiple POs, we'll read multiple POs and export them. We do have a more complete platform which adds in workflows and things as well. So when we read POs, if there's discrepancies, we can route them out. Non-PO invoices are routed for coding and approvals accordingly. And there is also a purchase order, a purchase requisition module associated with that. So yes is the answer. We can raise POs, you know, send POs out to your suppliers. We can read invoices with those POs, perform all the matching. So we do supply or can supply the full P2P suite. So yes.
Fantastic, thank you. And Nicholas, I think that will probably answer your other question here around process flow, etc. Yes, there's approval matrices, coding module, workflows around the business for approvals as necessary, etc. There's a full P2P suite under the Streamline banner. We were just looking at the capture element this morning as something that was nice to touch on for a shorter session for people. Darren at F1. Hello, Darren. Good morning. Can this software link to our accounting system? Darren, you'll have to forgive me. I'm sure I have spotted what you guys have got in passing, but I can't remember from the top of my head. We natively integrate with a huge number of finance systems and ERPs. The chances are, yes, we will be able to as standard. But without knowing exactly which package you've got, it's very hard for me to confirm that for you. We have got a couple of minutes if you want to pop it in. Epicor, Craig, Epicor, is that one you've come across?
It is not, no. Okay. However, we have multiple modules for export and integration. So for SAP, Oracle, and Dynamics, we provide packages for those finance systems to provide a synchronous connector. For most other ERPs that are not one of those three, we provide typically asynchronous connection for kind of master data loads, and the export itself is typically a secure flat file or web service calls. So depending on what finance system you have, we provide a means to integrate with those quite happily. So that's not a problem. There aren't many finance systems we've not come across, but we've never come across a finance system that we can't integrate with, purely because the finance systems are written in such a way that they can accept external documents, electronic documents. So brilliant.
Darren, I hope that answers the question for you as well. Okay, last bit here from Darren. Thanks. You mentioned a shared database with supplier master data from your clients. Does this have GDPR issues? The answer to this is rather more long-winded than I can go into right here. The answer at the bottom line is no. We're not storing data in that way. We're not maintaining data in that way. The full technical details of that, I would need to ask somebody to probably give you a call and go through.
Just to add to that as well, John. I mean, one of the things that we do have internal guidelines and things, and I can never remember the correct term. Is it Data Protection Officer, DPO? to make sure that we do keep in line with GDPR and things like that. But most of the information, in fact, all the information we store is publicly available anyway. So these are, registered companies. The information we grab is publicly available. The only thing that we kind of have to be careful about is to differentiate between suppliers and internal employees. So quite often, companies will set up their employees as fake vendors, so they can make kind of bonus payments and things like that through their finance system. When we integrate the supplier database, we need a way to differentiate between those employees versus legitimate suppliers. So that's typically the only point where we have some concern around GDPR, to make sure that we do not grab individuals, we only grab companies.
Yeah, and I know that within the link for the push and pull of data for particular clients of ours from the central repository, I know there's some technical stuff that happens in there as well, ensuring that it's
walled off. Yep, there is.
Yeah, it's walled off and coded specifically, isn't it? So lovely. Ladies and gents, we've gone a couple of minutes over. However, if there are any last minute questions, please fire them in. I'm very happy to answer.
I think there may be one there, John, that we may not have answered. We probably did, but Nicholas Hall, what happens in the process flow next? Is there a further approval and coding module? So the platform we've seen today, we offer kind of two flavors really. One is this CaaS, which is kind of invoice data capture as a service, which is you push in your invoices, we grab the data and push the data back out, and that is all it is. However, we have something that uses this technology called Streamline, which is a full complete solution with workflows. So there are two options really. One is if you have workflows in your finance system already, then you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You just want that invoice data quicker, more efficient than users typing it in. That's CaaS. That's perfect, and we guarantee these 85% recognition rates. And if you need workflows because your finance system doesn't have workflows, doesn't have PO matching, these kind of things, we would recommend that you took a look at Streamline for Invoices, which is the full workflow system, which does have, as you mentioned there, coding and approval workflows. So a non-PO invoice, it needs to be coded up, it's routed out automatically for approval. When the approval's done, that invoice exports to your finance system. So if you want to get in touch with John and the team to get a Streamline for Invoices demo, we can absolutely arrange that as well.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Nothing else has dropped into the questions. So ladies and gents, we will call it here. Craig, I know you have to run off to the next thing as well. Thank you very much for joining us all, and we will drop you an email across thanking you. Once we've got the recording from this available for you as well, we'll make sure we share that link with yourselves. The slideware is not going to be uploaded on this one purely because it's only a couple of slides. It's really not worth worrying about that. But again, if you'd like a copy of it, get in touch with us. We'll be more than happy to share that with you one-to-one. Ladies and gents, thank you very much. Craig, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.